Welcome to Global Gaming Women's Fair Game Podcast. We are here at the beautiful Light and Wonder Studios. As always, I am joined by Anika Howard, the beautiful and talented Anika Howard.
Oh,
Welcome.
welcome back to you too. I love this time, and we get to spend it together again.
I know. I love when you and I are in person together.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that it just makes it so much more powerful when you and I get to sit here together. So I'm so excited for today. We have a really cool episode today. It's our Spotlight series.
Yeah.
Brown can't be with us today, so I stepped in to help her out a little bit with this episode.
And you're so lucky. I'm so excited about our guest for today too. So
I know, what a cool one to help out with. Our guest, Shantel Love, she is an author. She's a speaker. She's an executive. She's a mom. She's a wife. She is everything. And she does it all, but she's overcome so much adversity in her life. And she really learned how to shift her mindset in how to face rejection and how to keep growing in her career path, and not only her career path, but her life. Yeah. And she's had so many setbacks and so many things that she's faced, and she's restarted her life. And her journey is so incredible, and I can't wait for our listeners to hear this. But before we get into it, I think, as part of us being vulnerable with our listeners, tell us about a mindset shift that you've had to make in your career, and how did that impact you?
No, I mean, I think absolutely. I remember early on in my career, I think you always kind of get this opportunity where you're in a place where you don't feel or believe that you're supported in the place that you are. And so I had to kind of, I think, shift away from a victim mindset to be able to say that, I am complete control of everything that I can do. And if I don't like my situation, I can change it. And I feel like switching your mindset to more of an empowering mindset is something that is a lot of time hard to do when you're in the moment, but such an impactful thing when you do. And so for me, what that did was open me up for additional opportunities. It let me stop living in the now and the woe is me and start thinking about, okay, what are the next things that I want to be able to do, and how do I need to position myself differently? And really, what do I really want to do? And some of the things I realized is that I was kind of fitting myself into a place that wasn't even what I was passionate about or what I wanted to do. And so for me, I think, just kind of being able to realize that you're in control of your destiny. 100%.
I also feel like that you're in control of your destiny, but like the more impactful piece of that is like you're in control of how you feel about how others feel about you, right?
Exactly.
We're going to talk a little bit today about like facing the rejection, but also how you react to being labeled and how you recover from things. So it's really like the lesson can be in from that moment of rejection, but it's also in how you recover from it. I think that's more of the lesson.
No, I think that was exactly it. I mean, because and I'll get vulnerable because I was in a situation where I thought that I was building a relationship with someone that I confided in as a mentor, or at least I thought was a potential mentor, and a peer, that just turned out into someone that was kind of really fishing for information, to really use that against me, use my vulnerability against me. And so that was a very hard feeling and things to go through.
Yeah, but you probably took that really personal, right?
I took it really personally on all levels, and it makes you question your judgment for people, makes you question your ability as an executive. And for me, I just think, once I took control over it, and to your point, you mentioned that you can't necessarily control how people see you, but you can control your narrative and how
you feel about it and how you react. Yeah,
exactly. And so that was a big piece for me. And it sounds like that's a going to be consistent theme when we kind of go into some of the conversations with kind of our special guest today.
I know we got to get into this. Yeah. I'm so excited for this. Our listeners are going to love this. All right, let's do it.
All right.
Okay, Shantel, thank you so much for joining us today on the Spotlight series. So just a really quick reminder, Spotlight series, obviously it's really built to shine a light on unique stories, right? And so we want to highlight you. So please tell our listeners all about you.
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here in this beautiful studio.
I know, isn't it
It
pretty?
is
The
amazing.
colors are a vibe.
It made me feel like I was right at home. So
Perfect. That's exactly what we were going for.
So, as a woman who watched her mom work 4 minimum wage jobs,
Whew.
4, not
Whew.
1, not 2, not 3, but 4, go back to school to earn her degree, only to get the degree to make $20 an hour for the last 35
Oh my
years,
goodness.
I realized that I became my mom. And when I realized that I became my mom, I had a decision to make. Do I stay here or do I choose something different? And I chose something different. And I knew my mom stayed there because she wasn't taught how to vocalize her value, how to advocate for herself. And she was taught to be grateful for what she had. But you can be grateful and you can also advocate for yourself. So I took myself on this journey to really face rejection and learn from rejection. I realized that if I were to get rejected, I would learn 2 things, right? I would either get a yes or I would learn a lesson along the way of what not to do.
Whew, that is a powerful mindset shift right there.
Yes, it's still in the works, but it's worked very, very well for me. So from that stance, I went from a entry-level position in sales to an executive leadership role at the world's largest learning company in less than 4 years. I also became the first in my family. I'm first generation college student, first generation entrepreneur, first generation author.
Get it, girl.
Thank you.
Wait. Author, tell him.
Author
Tell
of
him.
the one and only book, Promote Your Damn Self.
I love it. It's so powerful. That title packs a punch. We're going to dive into that a
Yes,
little
we
bit. But
are.
okay, keep going. Okay.
Yes, we are. And through that journey, I learned a lot about myself, about how I looked at asking, how I looked about positioning myself, and how I looked to overcome my own limiting beliefs. And through that work, I ended up helping so many women and professionals and people of color lean into the art of promoting themselves, lean into the art of reimagining what rejection really means. And I get to do that on some of the world's largest stages, keynote speaking and doing workshops on stages like Customer Contact Week and Amazon Web Service reInvent Conference that happens here every year in Las Vegas. And I feel like that's my purpose here. So I do that work because I am the work.
Oh, that is so, you have such a journey. Okay, so I think one of the things I wanted to dive a little bit into is that mindset shift that we
Yes.
sort of started talking about, right? I love the comment of attaching worth to humble beginnings, and reframing the shame and the truth. So can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I remember when I first got into corporate America, I was about 20 years old when I first got my corporate job, and I was working in a software company in California. And I went into this big old room. They have these big long tables with these
Always
big tall
intimidating.
like
Yep,
executive
always
chairs,
intimidating.
and everyone has on their suits and look buttoned up. And it was the meeting before the meeting, so everyone was getting acquainted with each other,
Don't
right?
you love how there's always meetings before meetings?
Always the meeting before the
We got to
meeting.
prep, right?
I'm like, hold on, wait a minute. So the prep turned into casual conversation. So there was a guy who was in a leadership position and he was talking about his upbringing. And he said, my mom, she was a teacher and my dad was a surgeon. And it kind of turned into everyone going around the room to tell their upbringing. And I initially had this whole conversation in my head about what I was going to say because my upbringing wasn't theirs. My mom had me at 15 years old. I didn't meet my dad until I was heading off to college, and he sold drugs. So I would find myself lying and said that he was a pharmaceutical salesperson to make me feel good. So in that moment, I had to make a choice. Do I tell the truth and they look at me and label me? Or do I escape out of this room and just hide in the bathroom? Or do I make up a story? And in that moment, that was the first time that I ever told the truth. And I realized that I did get the stares. I did get the I did get the people leaning back in their seats.
The bit of judgment,
Yes,
right?
the bit of judgment. And I realized that in that very moment that even before I opened my mouth, everyone in that room had a label or a perception of who I was, right? It didn't change the fact that I was one of the hardest working people, that I was the most educated, that I completed all projects with fidelity and saved a lot of money. But the thing is, I'm not my parents' journey. But I do realize that prior to that moment, I carried all of that shame. I was ashamed and afraid to talk about that journey. I was afraid to tell people that I was born to a 15-year-old and that we grew up below the poverty line. I mean, we were so poor, we could not afford the O and the R. We were poor. And I mean, seriously. And that's what it was. And I reshaped that by there was this opportunity that we had with an intranet where they were asking us to introduce ourselves. And I said, the question was, what is your superpower? And I said, my superpower is growing up in poverty. And then I started to tell the story on how I became very resourceful. When you grow up with next to nothing, you figure out how to make things stretch. So when I got into a corporate space managing 8 and 9 figure budgets, and they're like, we got to cut this budget by $1 million or $2 million. I'm like, that's a piece of cake. I may spend spaghetti stretch for a week and a half. Like, I definitely can cut this. And it became my superpower. It became my superpower because I can relate with people who are wealthy. I can relate with people who had next to nothing. I can relate to people who are just starting out. I can relate to people who are confident and not confident. And it really became my superpower, understanding that, yes, people will label you, but what do you say about yourself when no one's applauding? And I really had to reframe that muscle.
Wow, that is that's super powerful. And so I have to ask, what happened in that moment where you were in the meeting before the meeting, the prep meeting, where you made that choice to tell the truth? What came from that?
Yeah. So in that moment, I will be honest, like I told you that I was going through all of these thoughts. And when I think from the perspective of emotions, I remember like the feeling, my hands were clasped and they were wet and sweating. My legs were shaking. My thoughts were racing. And I remember my inner critic, I call her Big Bertha. Sorry for any of the Berthas out there. But Bertha was like, you do not belong in this room. They're going to judge you. They're not going to let you in or keep you in. They're going to kick you out. But what I will say is that although I felt their emotions, I felt their judgment, I felt the sense of shame, I knew that that had nothing to do with the quality of work that I brought. That had nothing to do with the quality of my character. And that had nothing to do with what I was meant to do. So yes, those emotions and those thoughts went through my mind, but I had to question the merit of the truth. The truth is, I worked hard to get here. Just as hard, if not harder, than everybody else in that room. But I will say that I gained a lot of respect from the executive leadership team for speaking my truth and not allowing it to define me or diminish me in the quality of work that I brought to the room.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I think it's like the important piece, obviously, your parents' journey didn't define you.
Right.
But it did help shape who you are, right?
Yes.
And it helped you had choices to make. You were either going to go for it or you were going to fall into the same path that your parents did. And you clearly went for it. So to me, the powerful piece there is recognizing that this is an okay story to own. I'm going to own this and I'm going to make something of it. And you did just that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We live in a world of infinite possibility that also leads to infinite choices, right? So like I told you, I went through the sequence of my choices, and every day we make these little micro choices, micro decisions that lead up to the person that you all see, that you tend to see in front of you, right?
Yeah.
You typically see someone for the end result. You see the promise, but you don't necessarily see the process
And the build up, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I think one of the other things is you probably learned shortly after that the world didn't end.
No.
Like you made a choice to tell the truth and you owned your truth and nothing really bad came from that, right? You grew and you learned a new experience for you and the world didn't end.
Yeah, and then unleashed a different person. Because I'm like, if I allow that to hold me back for 20 years and nothing happened and the world didn't end, what else can I unleash?
Yeah. It's that right there is another you have a lot of superpowers. I'm feeling this energy. I love it. So talk to me a little bit about the journey after that. So when you made that switch, I mean, you have a really cool career journey, and like what happened next after that?
Yeah, it didn't stop. So I think when people hear like those like moments where you have an epiphany, it's like, wow, that's a superpower. Like she's amazing. No, I backslided. I think
we all do.
Yes, I went back into those quiet corners of my mind And I found myself in spaces where I was in that software company in California. And I mean, it was an amazing software company, probably one of the best jobs that I ever had. But I'm a girl from the Midwest, and I am not used to the ground shaking underneath me uncontrollably. You know, they call them earthquakes. I just call it insanity.
Yeah.
So from there, I found myself relocating. So I moved from California and I moved to Texas, where I started working at the learning company that I work for right now. And it was a complete rebrand, if you will. So I went from a really high powered role leading people to an entry level position, an entry level sales position. And this was the first time I had ever done sales in my life.
Yeah. Sometimes you
And
got to take a little step back to take that leap forward, right? So
girlfriend, I
that's what
think
you
it was a
did.
leap back.
You leap back
Yes.
to maybe, really jump forward. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was a leap back. And I think just for the sake of the audience, what I mean by a leap, a financial leap, I went from making six figures to $40,000 a year.
And you relocated at the same
Yes,
time.
relocated.
So financial, physical, mental, because that probably took a huge toll on you.
Yes, starting over, being at the time I had my MBA. So having an MBA, and Sally Mae's knocking at my door because she wants her payments.
Oh, yeah.
And being amongst the team that has mostly recent college grads. So I'm the senior and we're peers at the same level. But what I will say about that humbled me a lot, because I had started questioning myself, like, why am I here? What am I doing? And I recall being in the interview, letting the hiring managers know that I'm okay with starting from the ground. I'm okay with auditioning, but I was very clear day one that of two things. One, that I wanted to get back into a leadership role. They didn't know me from anyone else, so I was willing to audition and show them the value that I brought to the table. And the second thing I made them aware of is that I was a multi-hyphenate. At the same time, I was an adjunct instructor at a university. So I was working on the side and working there at the same time.
So very clear up front.
Yes,
These
very
are the
clear.
expectations. This is what's happening.
Very
Okay.
clear. I think that that's important. That's where a lot of people miss. So I wanted to make sure that we were on the same page and we were aligned, and we were. But in that journey, what I will say is that I learned in that journey of sales, I was making well over 120 phone calls a day, and I was constantly getting rejected. And it was triggering because, keep in mind, my relationship with rejection wasn't that great, right? It wasn't that great. I hadn't met my dad until I was going to college, and that was like a open wound. So I kept associating it to that moment. And I had to rewire my mind. Is it really rejection, or is it an inopportune time, right? So I shifted it from the perspective of no one's answering me to it's just not right now. Try again, try another time. So I got into this practice of making 120 phone calls a day. I had the toughest territory. From day one, I'm very analytical. I told my manager, hey, this quota wasn't set appropriately, and I'm going to show you the math behind it. But
I giggle because I'm a former salesperson.
Okay.
So I often would be like, I don't really feel this forecast anymore.
Yes. So I just put it up front and I said, I'm not saying that I'm not going to give all of my effort, but there's not enough pipeline to hit this.
Let's
target.
get realistic.
Right. So we had that dialogue, and I was very open and honest, but I gave my effort. I made the most phone calls. I was the first in the office. I was the last to leave. And within that first year, I did not hit the quota. There were recent college grads that were making bonuses. They were making it rain, taking trips everywhere. And yes, I had a little jealousy inside of me. But within a year and a half, I got my first opportunity to advance. So there was a leadership role. I went for it and I interviewed. And according to the panel, I had the absolute best interview that they've ever seen. But even with the absolute best interview that they've ever seen, I didn't get the role because someone else was in line. So that other person got the opportunity. And what I want to share with the audience is when you don't get a role, they're not looking at the fact that you didn't get the role. They're looking at your behavior, how you respond to the rejection.
The recovery from the rejection.
Yes. So I allow myself a day to recover, and I heads down. And from that point forward, about 4 months after that, another position opened up. And I got tapped on the shoulder, not to apply, not to interview, but to step right into that position. Yes.
Everything happens for a reason.
It sure does. And this was an amazing position, leading a very large sales team. And then from that point forward, what I started to do was to go on this what I like to call it like a networking tour. So I started networking with individuals who knew more than me, individuals who control bigger budgets, individuals who had insights that I didn't quite have, but I needed. And I started to build this network in this company that had 40,000 employees. I was talking to people who I would never typically talk to on a day-to-day. And as a result of that network, it put me in a position where when opportunities came up, people came to me. So I quickly went from manager to director. Someone tapped me on the shoulder. Hey, we're building this organization. I was literally on maternity leave. I had just given birth. And I'm like, I can't come back. I have 3 months out. They're
I
like,
need a little more
I
time.
need some time. They're like, don't worry, Shantel, we'll wait. We won't even post the position until you come back in the office because of the relationship. I took on that director role, and then a project came up at work where customer service was horrible. I won't go into all of the details. I had a strategy.
Okay,
And
good.
I presented the strategy
I
to
believe
leadership.
it.
And they said, well, if you think it's so much of a problem, won't you do it? And I said, don't mind if I do. So I took on this $19 million project, turned around customer service in the first year of the project, and was asked to apply for the vice president of customer success role, which I sit in right now. So that journey of taking a giant leap back financially, taking a giant leap back mentally, taking a giant leap back physically and spiritually is the position that positioned me for the executive leadership role. It positioned me for the ability to advocate for myself. It positioned me for where I am today.
So that whole journey and all of that collection of feeling what it feels like to not only be rejected, but go through the change, the mental change we talked about, the physical change, that you collected all of that, where you are today and the role you're in now. Tell me how the speaker journey came into play and the author journey. How do you, well, personally, I have a lot of questions. How do you do it all? Because you do it all. You have kids, you have, all of this. But tell me then how you transitioned into becoming a speaker and an author.
Yes. So I will start with the speaker part. Well, actually, I'll start with the author part. I really never thought that I would be an author. Like that was never like on my bucket list. There was not anything that I wrote in my high school yearbook. Like, yeah, you'll see me as an author. Like that was not anything that I was gunning for. But along that journey that I had just shared, there were a lot of people who were watching me and they're like, how are you ascending so fast? Like, what are you doing? And I was just giving away information for free. So I just started sharing, like, this is how I network, and this is how I create a return on investment strategy. This is how I share my tactical strategies with leadership versus my long-term strategy. This is how I speak their language so that they can't disagree with themselves. They agree with me, right? So I started giving those strategies and it started working for other people, and not just people within my company, people within other industries, from hospitality to telecommunications to finance, and they were growing in their career. And it came a point in time where they were referring me so much that I couldn't give away the free information on a one-on-one basis. So I decided to put everything in my book, Promote Your Damn Self. And I framed it from that perspective of not just vocalizing your value or promoting yourself in your career, but promoting yourself in your mind. It all starts with how you think about yourself, how you look at yourself when there's no one in the room that's clapping up and rooting for you. It starts with building that social capital, that social wealth, that network that'll be in your corner, that'll advocate for you in rooms that you're not in yet. And then how to package and position yourself from a financial perspective. Oftentimes people have an idea of where they want to go, like a position or a title, versus looking at the skills that they have that'll take them in a slightly different direction that they may not have thought of. But it still allows them to make the impact. It still allows them to make the income, and it still allows them to get that visibility that they're looking for in their career. So the book came about as a function of just coaching and consulting with peers and colleagues and being referred to others to help them on their career journey to get them promoted. Now, the speaking journey came up by happenstance. On that same journey, when I was trying to get to the vice president role before the project came up, there was an international sales meeting. And at that time, I was in sales, but I did not have a speaker slot. So I asked if I can do a speaker slot to talk about our business. And I shot my shot. When I tell you, like, I went to the half court line, and I released it, and it went in. I shot my shot. And what I ended up doing was I created a TEDx style keynote for our organization. And I showed the human side of our business. What does this mean for your mom? What does this mean for your grandma? What does this mean for your auntie? And I'm a grandma's girl. So I told a story about my grandmother, and I integrated it into how we do our business. It was a bit of humor in there, but I mean, it was.
Yeah, but you made it personal.
Yes,
you
I
put
made it
that
personal.
human
Yes.
element into it. Yeah.
Yes. And I had everyone on the edge of their seats. The managing directors were there. The presidents were there. And after that, they saw me in a different light. They saw me as someone who not only understood the business, but someone who took the work that she did personally, someone who was a great storyteller, someone who understood the business and the work that we did beyond just what's on a spreadsheet. So that was the first time that I ever realized that I can speak. And I'm a curious person, so I ask a lot of questions. The first time that I got a professional speaking opportunity was at Customer Contact Week, which is the largest customer service conference in the world. And I was in the audience asking a lot of questions, and this lady came up afterwards, and she's like, "Are you a speaker?" And at the time, of course, Big Bertha was like, "Girl, you know you're not a speaker," but my mouth said yes.
Okay. It helped you shoot your shot.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All
My
right. You
mouth
went for
said
it.
yes. So she said, "Okay, let's set up a call." So we set up a call, and she said, "Well, I have this healthcare conference coming up in Tampa, and I think you will be an amazing speaker. What are your rates?" I had no idea like what speaker rates were. So the first thing that came out of my mouth was $3,000. She was like, "Great." She was like, "Do you need accommodations covered? Do you need flight cover?" So
Tell me you said yes.
I said, "Absolutely
Okay.
yes."
Yes. Okay. Great.
Absolutely, yes. So I did this speaking engagement in front of 400 healthcare practitioners. This was my first professional paid speaking engagement. Mind you, this was 2.5 years ago. I'm fairly new to this space. And the night before the speaking engagement, I had a panic attack. My first ever panic attack. I'm laying in the bed and I'm like, what is happening? Am I having a heart attack? I'm here in Tampa by myself, and I'm laying on the bed and I can't catch my breath, and I'm laying on my back and I'm looking at the ceiling, and this ceiling fan is going round and round and round so fast that I can see one singular blade. So I focused on that one blade, and it calmed me down. And what felt like 30 minutes was only 3 minutes. And I had to sit with those feelings. Like, why am I feeling this? That was imposter syndrome. That was Big Bertha that was saying, you've done this before, but you've never gotten paid for this. Have you deceived these people?
Yeah. Are you sure you're ready for this?
Are you sure? And the next day I went out there in front of those 400 people, and I said, "Shantel, you do this all the time. Your company has flown you all around the world to sell their products. Sell yourself." And I went on that stage and I did exactly that. And I got a standing ovation, and I got invited back to speak at the next
No
year's
better
conference.
compliment.
Yes. And just got some really amazing testimonials as a function of that. And from there, the sky was the limit. And I said, I got something here. 400 people are telling me that this is possible. Go for it.
Oh, that is something.
Yeah.
I've been in that situation where you go to speak on stage, and like that feeling in your gut where it's like telling you, what are you doing here?
Yes.
Right? You don't belong. And I love how you were able to just kind of squash that voice and say, yeah, I got all my nerves out the night before. I said, I'm going to put all this aside. I'm going to focus on that one single blade in the fan. And then I'm going to go out and do my thing because I'm here. I know I belong here. And you did that. That's amazing.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about, you're going to help me because
Okay.
your energy is incredible.
Oh, thank you.
I'm feeling this. So, if you've listened to our podcast before, we are very vulnerable and we share ourselves, not only our personal selves, but our professional selves. And so I'm going through a journey in my professional career where I am taking on leadership roles.
Okay.
And one of the things that I know, thank you, wild. But one of the things that I know that a lot of our listeners can probably relate to is as a female, we go into a room full of men because the gaming industry is primarily men.
Yes.
We go into a room full of men and we have to make a decision. Are we going to be assertive today? Are we going to lead with empathy and sympathy and all of the things that make us who we are? And if we're going to be assertive, are we prepared for that label that we're going to receive, right? She's the B word, right? So talk to me a little bit about how I can not only help myself, but help our listeners when they have to make a decision. You need to be assertive in something. How do you do it and not worry about that judgment piece that comes after?
Yeah, that is a really great question. And it makes me think about when I first got into a director role. So I work in education technology, so basically tech. So there is mostly probably 80%, if not 85% men in our organization. So I can empathize. But I remember when I went into this role, I had all of the years of experience, had all of the expertise, and was taken on a position with a lot of very educated people who had more letters behind their names than they had in their entire name. So, I mean, PhDs, MDs, PMPs.
Things we have to look up after we
Yes,
meet them. Yeah.
A, B, C, D, E, F, Gs. So they had that all behind their names. And I remember being in the office and I was taking on this one employee, and it was my first month in the role. And I was talking to the managing director in the hallway, and this person just comes up and they say, interrupt the conversation. And they interrupt and say, I don't think you made the right decision with Shantel. She should work under me. You should put me in her position and allow her
In
to
front
shadow
of
me.
you.
Yeah, in front of me.
Okay.
In front of me. And in that moment, I had a lot going on in my head because while I am astute and I'm professional here, I'm still from the east side of Detroit. So the song "Nuck If You Buck" came in, and I was like, "Hold on, wait, you're at work, so just pause for a second and allow this to shape itself out. Let's see what the managing director says." And the managing director looked them in the face and said, "We didn't make a mistake with Shantel. Shantel will not be reporting to you. And it seems like there's some things that you need to work out yourself." And to get to what you're saying, regardless if they want to refer or label you as the B word, if they want to label you as the B word, be the baddest B word possible, right? Because people are already going to come in with their preconceived notions, but no one can erase the process that you went to get to that point. No one made a mistake to say, hey, I'm going to put Lauren in this space to lead other people. People will have their perceptions. Now, if I were to share 3 things that the audience can take away from that experience, or if they're in an environment that's male dominated, if they're worried about being labeled, if they're worried about other people's perception, the first thing that I would say is, if you don't already have one, start building relationships with human resources. I know people often look at human resources as the people to go to when I'm hired and when I'm fired.
Yeah,
But
and they don't know what's in between.
Nothing in between. But the reality is, when you start to build a relationship with human resources, you can start asking questions on behalf of someone else, although they're your questions. So as you're stepping into leadership responsibilities or taking on projects, you can lean in and you can say, there's someone on a project, they wanted me to come to you and have a conversation with you. There's an assertive or aggressive colleague that's, maybe tarnishing my name. What's the best course of action to handle this? What's the documentation process to handle this? Because at the end of the day, what's going to happen is going to be someone's word against someone else's word. So if you get ahead of the curve, you're putting yourself in the best position if something were to happen and you already have that relationship.
Yeah,
right?
You're documented, you've got the relationship, you've figured out the process. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, number 1, I got it.
Yep. The second thing is, when you think about peers, when you think about mentors, when you think about your network, layer that network. So you want to have a network of a peer that may be in the same role or in the same position, but in a different area. So you can have someone that you're threading and talking to. So you're bouncing ideas off. You're doing a pulse check with that person just to make sure that you're not crazy. And if you are crazy, have someone that can pull
Yeah.
you back in.
Remind me
right?
that I'm crazy. At the
Yes.
right time, tell me I'm crazy. That's okay. I'll take it. Okay.
Yes. And then the next level is someone who is slightly above you, someone who may not necessarily have the power to manage you, but someone who has that leadership prowess that can give you the inside scoop. What is leadership really looking for? What, give you an evaluation of yourself objectively, so that you can identify the areas of opportunity for yourself. And then the next level is someone who's maybe depending on your organization, someone who's at an SVP level, managing directing level, or a president level. Build that relationship with an individual who has the power, the authority, and the influence to advance your career, and set up quarterly touch bases with this person. This person will act as your advocate. They will act as your sponsor if you can get to that point. They'll act as your ally, and they'll give you a perspective because they have years of experience that are likely beyond yours to help shape your perception and shape what your brand looks like inside of the organization. And I think if you can look at it from that perspective, it kind of puts you in this alliance. Like we were talking about superpowers. You're kind of like the Fantastic Four. So it's the
building
three
your
of them
group.
and you. They have your back, and you know that you have this group of people that can vouch for you if that one person comes and they try to label you or put you in a precarious spot. So you're not just standing on your own too.
Whew. Okay. I mean, I think everybody probably just learned everything they need to know. I mean, seriously, that was awesome. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So in true Spotlight series honor, I'm going to honor Bronwyn because Bronwyn's not here, but she has this lovely way to end a conversation. I'm pretty sure you and I could probably talk for the next 5 hours, but we have to get out of here. But she has this lovely way of ending Spotlight series. We usually do rapid fire, which is so fun, but Bronwyn does this. And she asked this question so that she can leave the audience with something extra powerful. So I want to know, what is the best compliment you have ever received, and how did it positively impact you or your life and career?
I love this. I know you said one. I have to give two. I think one is I'm proud of you for my husband because he knows the true me. What people see and hear on this podcast, they see all of the rah, but you all don't see the inner critic, inner saboteur type conversations, the spirals. So when I hear him say, I'm proud of you, I know it comes from a place of,
It's like so simple, but so impactful.
Yes, it comes from a place of him absolutely knowing my journey. But the one that I definitely want to leave the audience with is the best compliment that I ever received is from a woman, and I hate that I cannot remember her name right now. She says, "You are a dragonfly." So when I was 25 years old, I was rejected from every single graduate school that I applied to. And I remember receiving those rejection letters and like literally holding them up and reading them over and over and over again as if the words would rearrange themselves and go from "we regret to inform you" to "congratulations," right? And I remember when I received the 6th rejection letter to a school that I really wanted to go to, I cried and I cried. And I didn't cry because of the rejection. I cried because of the promise that I knew that was attached to it. I knew that that would make it real, where my shame was gone. I knew that it would make it real that I did all of this to exit poverty. I knew that doing this would make little Shantel so proud, and it would make an impact that was bigger than myself. So in that moment, I realized that, yes, I can cry, but then my husband, in his loving voice, he said, "I'm going to give you a hug here, but what are we going to do?" I said, "We're not going to do anything. I'm going to go down to that school and I'm going to contest this rejection." And I got in my car and it was pure adrenaline. I was driving and driving and driving. And then I got like a quarter of a mile from the school, and then the real thoughts started coming in. It was
What
like,
am I doing?
Yes, it was like, are you sure this is the right thing?
Yeah.
What happens if you get there and the doors are locked? What happens if you get there and they escort you out via security?
How did I get in this car? That's
Yes,
it.
like,
My brain would
I was going crazy, right? And the reason why I know I went there, because the rejection of the doors being locked or being escorted out by security was better than going there and all of the belief that I had being diminished all over again. But when I got there, the doors were unlocked. There wasn't any security waiting to escort
Hey,
me
wait,
out.
the world was not
The world was
ending.
not ending, okay? And I walked in, and there was this lady at the front desk, and she said, how can I help you? And in like all of my confidence, I said, I'm here to contest my rejection. And she's like, do you have an appointment? And my voice is still stern. My hands are sweating. My legs are shaking a little bit, but I was firm. And I said, no, I do not. I would like to speak to the Dean of Admissions of in the College of Business. And she said, one moment, please. And that moment went from 1 minute to 30 minutes to an hour to
And
2
you
hours.
waited
And
this out.
I waited. And after 2 hours, I had an opportunity to meet with the Dean of Admissions and the Dean of College of Business. And I brought everything out. I shared with them the accomplishments that I had in corporate America. I shared my journey. I shared with them that I came from very humble beginnings, and I was the first in my family to go to a university. And although I was the first in my family to go to a university, the first year I was in Grambling State University, I was in the remedial classes for reading. The first year I went from remedial classes to honors dorms, and I finished in honors at that university. And I shared that the reason that I didn't get in is because of my test scores, and test scores only predict the first year of performance in a university. So I had my case. And after pleading my case, I left that university with a conditional acceptance and a scholarship, and I became the first in the history of their university at that time to contest a rejection. And
With no appointment.
With no appointment at all. Now, tell me, that's probably where Promote Your Damn Self was born, okay?
I think we just figured that out.
We did together here on this podcast. But as I was walking out the door, the lady at the front desk, she said, wow, you're a dragonfly. And I said, what exactly does that mean? She said, you see, most people glorify the butterfly. You have butterflies on t-shirts and cups, and they're just beautiful and majestic. But the dragonfly, it spends most of its life underwater. And when she said underwater, she said, I was listening in on your story. You lived your life underwater, living in poverty, living in shame, aiming for a life that's better than yours. And the dragonfly, once it emerges, is the only insect in the world that can fly in any direction, forward, backwards, left, and right. And she said, I see you. You're going to fly forward, backwards, left, and right. You are a dragonfly. So that was oh, I'm getting emotional.
Oh, I think I am too.
So that was the best compliment that I've ever received.
I think that's the best compliment I think I've ever heard.
Yeah.
You are an incredible soul, and I feel very lucky to have this encounter with you. I just want to say thank you for being here today, and thank you for sharing your journey. It's an incredible one. Everyone go Promote Your Damn Self,
Yes.
And never forget to be a dragonfly.
Absolutely.
I think that's the best way we could possibly end this.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.